introduction to one of my favorite people on earth, Mr. Stephen Oliver, who is with the Advisor Marketing Podcast. Now, Stephen is a true maverick, and I mean that in every sense of the word. Not only in our business, but I have to tell you, his clients universally love him, and they grow at rates that they wouldn't believe it's possible. Now, on this podcast, in each episode, Stephen is joined by various members of his team or special guests to share insider secrets to rapid growth and high net profits in your financial advisory practice. So I just want you to know you're in for a wild ride, new information, and a lot of exciting new future because of Stephen Oliver.
Hey there, Stephen Oliver again. I'm joined by performance coach Lee. Your bio is way too long for me to recite in total, but you have, I don't know, you used to have your own TV show. You're a high-level performance coach. You've worked with everybody from NASA to an awful lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners, like the group that we're working with. You were the lead of the coaching programs for Dan Kennedy's organization, GKIC, for many, many, many years. Pick up from there a little bit. And by the way, I have to always remind you, we've known each other since the 80s because we met in Boulder, Colorado, when you were still with Career Track.
And yeah, I was 11. Did you know I was 11 years old then?
You were 11. I must have been 9 or 12 or something like that. And in truth, I already had 6 martial arts schools in Denver, Colorado at that point. It was in the habit of bringing all my staff to anything I could find, including those big success seminars and the Career Track things and every other thing.
Yes, I've been around for a couple of days. I am very pleased that I have my niche in life really is just entrepreneurs. My niche is people who want to have a growth mindset and make money and contribute to the world. So unfortunately, there's a lot less of those. But for the people who are out there, they are doing a great job. They're curious, they're open-minded, but they're learners. And those are the kind of people that I thrive with. If I get around people who are, got the blinders on, refuse to look at, reality from any other perspective, I really know that they're not my tribe, so to speak. And we've been working together. Not only have we known each other this long, I don't have my Rolex on today. I did think of you.
You've got your. I've got an Omega on today.
And so, I remember the first time you came up to me and you pointed your Rolex to me, and I pointed my Rolex at you, and then we bonded.
Yes, yeah, we had the male and female version of the presidential.
That's correct.
I think both with diamond faces, if I remember.
That's right. Correctly. That's right. So I'm a big believer in that there are no limitations in life other than the ones that we allow to hamper us.
Yeah.
And that there's always a solution, and that the only way that we all succeed as entrepreneurs is truly get out of the lane that we were in and look for a different way to see life, because there's a lot more obstacles than there used to be. But even with obstacles, there's ways around it. There's fixes, and it's all about mindset, to be honest.
Right. Well, you just hit upon our what I think our primary topic will be today is the difference between having blinders on and really being able to see the world. And the financial advisor industry, the finance industry, however you want to phrase it, life producers, there's a lot of ways to frame it, but it's worse than anything I've ever seen as far as having blinders on and having a very narrow worldview of what's possible. I was going to share 2 or 3 things here to begin with, and by the way, we're going to talk about my new book and your new book and your contribution to my book and all of that. But let me share first from our mutual friend and mentor Dan Kennedy, and let me see if I can figure out how to do this properly. Here we go. I received this, just last week. And this, I think, really illustrates what I am talking about. He says right here in the second line, many are trapped in a sales model and doing things they do not like to do, much the same as they were 10 or 20 years earlier in their career. And Stephen Oliver's book dismantles all this brilliantly and directs very different, more sophisticated thinking about self-marketing. Maybe back up a step. He says, I'm perpetually surprised how comparatively primitive even its high six-figure income professionals are about marketing, thus making their attraction of clients much harder than it needs to be. Well, that kind of nails what we're talking about, doesn't it? Is
1,000,000%.
yeah.
I've had my most experience with financial marketers and financial planners when I ran Peak Performers for 12 years with Bill Glazer and Dan Kennedy.
Yeah.
And then I ran Renegade with Adam Whitty. And here's what I discovered.
Adam Whitty of Forbes Books.
Yes, from Forbes Books. And that's very important to know because that was hard earned, I'm sure.
Yes.
So what I found was that these financial planners came into the groups and they were completely besottenly brainwashed by their industry of what they couldn't do.
Yeah.
That everything they did, it was like checking with the powers that be. They acted like scolded children, that if they step over the line in any way, this big hammer was going to come down on them. So for all these years that I did that, my main focus was to question, why aren't you pushing the envelope a little bit? And you're not standing out to any of the people around you. You're not attracting clients who really want a creative, fresh look at life. You're sticking to the old road, which is worn out and tired and exhausted. And I will honestly tell you that the financial planners who thrive because they were in our groups, they adapted sort of the Dan Kennedy and your marketing strategies. They stepped out of that very narrow focus and they took some risk, but I mean, they stayed in the lane enough that, nobody was going to kick them out of the business. But the advantage to them was the acceleration of number of clients that were attracted to them.
Yeah.
And I still have some of those private clients today. And, they thank me all the time about removing the veil, they call it, of what can be and, what we're told can be. So for all you financial planners out there today, there's a lot more money, a lot more ease, a lot more joy by, paving your own road than it is sticking to things that used to be. And I like this, old keys don't open new doors.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not mine, but I love it.
Yeah.
And that's where we are. And don't go to if you're going to the tried and the true, that means that there's 4 million of people doing exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
How will you distinguish yourself? How do you stand out from that?
Yeah.
And so that's the mindset you have to have.
Yeah. Yeah. I always come back to Earl Nightingale's quote, which is, if you don't have a format for success, look around at what everybody else in the industry is doing and do the opposite. Right. And here's yet another example directly from the industry here. Again, let's see how efficient I am in sharing this. Here we go. This is a pretty high profile person in the industry here. As soon as I manage to get it to actually show up here. There we go. This is Ken Fisher from his book, The 10 Roads to Riches. And notice what he says: when my firm started doing direct mail marketing for high net worth individuals, industry experts said we were nuts. Ditto when we started internet direct marketing. Couldn't work. No one would respond to advertising like that and become clients. Next came radio, print ads, and TV. They all worked, which is how we built my firm. But most everyone in the know thought we were daft. I love that. Most everyone in the know thought we were daft. And then he goes on to say, when we rolled it out outside of the United States, they all thought he was daft as well. And again, that's a great indication. There's I believe you were there. I was there in a small group with Adam Whitty and Dan Kennedy as they hosted Ken Fisher. And he basically said, as I was growing my company, when I got some pretty good mass, I was worried about everybody knocking me off. And then I realized that they all had these blinders that had already concluded that what he was doing wouldn't work for them. And to unpack what you said a minute ago, Lee, is one is there's this fear of compliance. And it's one of those things that's a very real fear that ends up being, for want of a better word, catastrophized, right? There's a fear of running afoul of FINRA, running afoul of the SEC, of running afoul of the actual authorities, and fearing that they really can't do anything because of quote unquote compliance. And then which is a real fear that's blown into this massive boogeyman rather than into the reality of what it all is all about. As you were saying, the second element is what Dan's old partner Bill Glazier used to call the sales prevention department. So the big companies all have a raft of attorneys and all these other people who end up being the sales prevention department, telling the advisors what they can and cannot do. And they are perhaps well-intentioned, well-meaning, and well-educated, but they really are way, 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 way too narrowly focused and have no sense of anything other than go pick up the phone and do cold calls as far as their marketing efforts.
There's an old saying, it's called "what you focus on expands."
Yep.
And this is what you just said is a real example of that, Stephen, in the sense of, it appears to me that the majority of the financial advisors focus on what they cannot do, which of course, if you are into creativity and scanning the landscape of what will work, that completely shuts that down. Your brain refuses to even see it. And the bottom line is that money is just a symbol, an energy, and that it goes to where it is appreciated. And that sounds strange to people, but it really is true. And that, I think a lot of these financial advisors have this mental manual job in their heads. Mm-hmm. And it's, this is what I do. This is the formula. And I do ABC, ABC, ABC. And maybe that worked in 1950. Yeah. Maybe it worked in 1960. But it's certainly not working today. And one of the things that, I think all of us should pay attention to is when you're looking in your life for, some kind of advisor on anything, whether it's a physician or financial or anything, you want to look at somebody who is on the same page as you. Right. Now, if your clients are all follow the rules and afraid to do anything, you can still work with those, but you're going to work with diminishing clients because the world right now is expanding. It has to expand. Again, old keys are not opening new doors. And what all of us have to do is look at our clients and say, how can I be the person that they're looking for? And most of them aren't developing their own personality. They're not using, any of the, as I know you and I've talked about, they have like a sales program. They're salespeople, but you have to be an influencer. If you think instead of being a salesperson, you have to be an influencer of like, you're showing this stuff. I do have a client who's very and I've had her for 3 years. She's a CPA. She's also a financial advisor. And everything I suggest to her, the first thing she says is, no, we can't do that. I always say, well, what if you could find a way around that? What if you could do a workaround? Even in her newsletter, she won't do the most simplest little things because she's so afraid of the compliance. Mm-hmm. And this year, after 3 years, it's taken 3 full years to get her to finally try something new. She tried it. And then within 3 months, she was stunned at the number of new clients that she got by making these small but effective changes.
Oh, absolutely. And the other thing that happens is by being so fearful, these guys all end up in the no worse than anybody else syndrome. I remember I picked that up from Tom Peters many, many years ago. As he said, most companies are acting like their marketing differentiator is we're no worse than anybody else. And nobody's attracted to that. That's not what I'm attracted to. I want to be attracted to somebody who has personality, who has gravitas, who is willing to take a stand, who is willing to stand out above the crowd. It's, first couple chapters of my new book, and we'll talk about that, is all about be different from the crowd, not be the same as the crowd. Find ways to differentiate yourself. What's interesting about yourself? In your case, you have your painting behind there in your beautiful home right on the beach in Virginia Beach. I have 100 elk in my backyard and at 8,000 foot elevation in Colorado. Well, they're kind of trivia points of where we happen to live. But most advisors, they don't even want to share what are their hobbies, what are their kids doing, I have one who's into motorcycles and one that's into Porsches. Well, okay, let's make the office with the glass wall and let's put your Porsche collection on that side and have the conference room overlooking, and let's have something unique about you that they can then identify. And guess what? You'll attract more people who both appreciate that you're unique and appreciate, but you also attract people who are similar to you, who are in a comparable income bracket, or who are appreciative of that level of just uniqueness.
So that reminds me, years ago, Dan Kennedy talked about being diabetic, alcoholic, that he had bankruptcy problems. His car got repossessed. There was all these sundry of things. And
Right.
I was new to his world at the time. And I was like probably sitting next to you going, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly.
Showing all of these flaws.
Right.
And later I said to him, well, one, that was kind of ballsy to do that. And he said, that wasn't ballsy at all. It was completely on target. And I said, why? And he said, well, because think of the number of people who've been bankrupt, who've had their cars, who, divorced or this or that. And he said, all of a sudden I bond with those people because, I'm teaching these things, but I've had these problems that I've overcome. He said, every time I can put a new category in there, then that somehow bonds me to people. So you're absolutely right about if you're into motorcycles or Porsches or things like that. I mean, like the motorcycle world is huge.
Oh yeah.
And the Porsche world is huge. I mean, I think one of the things I'm known for is I like jewelry. So, just think about, I mean, if women see me, men could care less, but the women who see me are like, well, she must be doing something right. Look at all this jewelry she has. Now, just so you know, I buy it for myself, but anyway,
Right. Oh, yeah, right.
that's okay. I can do that, or I point it out and have somebody buy it for me. But every little thing that we can do that expresses our personality, whether it's artwork or living at the beach or, living in a beautiful place like you do, in some way connects people on an emotional level that they will feel more bonded to you, more connected to you, or appreciate that you've had these problems and overcame them.
Yeah. Well, and even more so than that, I believe is the next level, that people want to do business with humans. They don't do business with faceless corporations. And if you look at in this industry, again, I used Ken Fisher as an example. Ken Fisher's advertising is completely different than all the big companies, because the big companies, they don't have a face. They don't have a personality. They don't have a voice. And the advisors that are working with them do their best to replicate that generic, no different than anybody else syndrome, which is death. It's just unbelievable. But, that was what my rule when I founded my first company way back, in dating myself here, 1983, is I realized very quickly that people don't want to deal with a faceless bureaucracy. They want to deal with humans. They want to deal with other people that they can relate to. They want to deal with people who have similar backgrounds, similar interests, similar desires, or have unique hobbies of things they could do. An example I use in my book is, Dan Kennedy, you mentioned Dan. He's got that great picture of him sitting on a damn longhorn steer. And it's like, well, what the hell is that all about, right? And it's the no BS moniker. But who else is sitting in a business suit with a tie on a steer? You're gonna remember that one, right? Jerry Spence, the famous attorney. All the pictures of him were always in the suede jacket with the tassels, and I think he lived in the, at a ranch in Wyoming or something. But it was these people that you remember something interesting about them. They stood out from the crowd. You probably read Tim Ferriss's book years ago, The 4 Hour Work Week. Awful lot about the book that I didn't think was very valuable, but what I liked about the book, among others, was he had this picture, the avatar of what he didn't want to be, and it was the bald-headed fat guy in the red BMW convertible. And the avatar of that was, here's somebody who had waited 50 years in their life before they ever had, any of the rewards of their labor, rather than having the rewards along the way. But in dealing with now hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of financial advisors, we start thinking of them all as being in the JCPenney suit, sitting behind the oak desk. They all have the same look, the same feel, the same conversation, and there's just, most of them, there's nothing interesting about them at all, or else the things that are interesting about them, they hide behind the wall there.
That's incredibly true. I did have a financial advisor who took my advice in the Renegade Millionaire. I said to him, how many people who are your competitors in your town are finding great books and sending those books out to potential customers? And he says, well, I don't really know, but I don't think any. And he actually each month sends literally 100 books out. Now, they're not very big books, and he bought them at a very good price.
Sure.
But he said to me, he said, he said, not only have I sent the book out, he said, at least once a month, maybe they haven't done business with me at all, but I'm drilling away into their subconscious mind that I am a guy who has information, that I care about them, and I'm willing to share the information. And he said, this isn't a sprint. This is a marathon, that you have to be consistent and be doing things that brings value. So for anybody who's listening today, I mean, Stephen Oliver's book, is I'm in the book, so I'm a little prejudiced and biased.
Sure, but you're a contributor as well as a.
But I've read the book, and I love the flip version of the book. That was really great. I'm going to ask you how to do that. But you got to think of how you can, when you go, if you go to hypothetically, there we go. And this book, you have to read the book, but there are processes in this book that if you just follow these processes, and it's not rocket science, it's not brain surgery, you're going to be able to attract people you couldn't attract before. I think there's something interesting happening in the world today. I really do believe that we have a lack of trust for people who have said they were for our highest and best. And I won't go into that, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. But we've been betrayed by government, we've been betrayed by industries, we've been betrayed repeatedly, we've been sold stuff that's not true. So you've got to be the person who is the producer, who, when you give advice, people listen. And that also depends on how much you believe in yourself. And that whole mindset part of, if you're wanting to be a financial advisor, but secretly you are feeling very insecure and not clear about yourself, you're repelling people, you're not attracting people. And one of the greatest ways, instead of selling, I want you to remove the word selling out of your mind, because selling and financial advice is wrong. You should be an educator, meaning that, okay, if you want a bond, or you want stocks, or you want whatever it is you want, let me educate you and match your needs with the product's needs or the product's delivery. And I know a lot of you have a lot of negative thoughts about selling, because from the time you were a child, the media decided that they couldn't pick on very few people publicly, but they did pick on salespeople. And because there was no big union or something, where salespeople got together and fought the media. But if you looked at just a sitcom where they made buffoons out of salespeople, And you look at how you're not aware that that repetitive message over and over and over actually got into your subconscious mind. So I mean, I've written a book on sales, and I really say, look, when you say sales to someone, most of the time their energy goes down. But if you say, I can educate you on this, or I can give you, data and information to make very good informed decisions that could be profitable, I'm sure you'd be interested in that. So but first you got to clean up yourself.
Mhm.
If you don't clean up yourself, you have that imposter syndrome thing going on. And so many people who are working in the financial industry actually feel like they're imposters
Yeah.
because their whole life is a mess themselves.
Mhm.
So if you do the right thing, I mean, it's easy to clean yourself up, but pay very close attention to your own self-talk, and your own intentions, and what do you think is going to happen in the future, and where are you out of balance. If you get yourself into balance and you really feel good about yourself, you automatically attract people. I mean, Stephen, you and I have sat in a lot of audiences where there's people on stage and they're really good until they get to the sales part, and then they
Then they
completely
implode.
fall
Yeah.
they're all smiley and happy, and as soon as they start selling on stage, they get very freaked out and their energy level is very off, and then they're surprised that nobody goes in the back room and orders anything. So I believe that great sales is a matter of how much are you in great integrity with your intentions towards that person. And of course, our intentions has to be, we want to be of the best service possible.
Mhm.
And when you think like that, you feel free to share information that will help people, and you'll pursue them appropriately. Just before we started recording, I told you something I was trying to sell somebody that nothing I could do to sell them on. Don't do that.
Mhm.
And now, maybe they'll look back at me and remember. I doubt it, but we have to do the right thing. So if you're not constantly reading books about your self-talk and your intentions and your mindset and things like that, then you're going to miss a little part of the big success you can have in life. We only rise in life to what we believe is possible. And I believe that most financial advisors also don't set their goals high enough.
Oh, absolutely.
They've let the news completely put a pin in their balloon.
Yeah. Well, a client and a friend who is, a strong 7-figure earner. So he's well into the $1.5 million, $2 million a year net income, having the similar tax issues that you and I have of writing incredibly big checks every quarter. But we were talking about that and talking about the way that people are thinking about it, and in a period like now where the economy is in all kinds of turmoil. His comment was almost all the advisors are cowering under their desk, afraid to talk to their clients. And and this was back, the first conversation was back when the COVID thing hit and the market crashed. And I said, well, what we should be doing is we should be doing a series of webinars and teleseminars and Zoom meetings and getting everybody in the group. And we should have a weekly newsletter going out to them and a constant communication. And he said, well, that's so interesting because most people do the exact opposite. Most people do at a time they're afraid of their clients bailing out or complaining about their results, they hide under the desk. It's just the exact opposite of what you should be doing. As far as thinking in terms of potential, see, it's amazing how advisors go after, it's not even the mass affluent. It's kind of like they get this sense in their mind of everybody needs what I do. It's like, well, okay, but your mission is to help those that you can have the highest leverage with, have the highest income with. I know we were talking about you finally sold your office building, but the signs all over your office were always follow the money. Well, that's my focus is how do we move the quality of your prospective clients up a couple of notches? How do we add a couple of zeros to their income and to their asset base? How do we, let's pursue 50-year-old entrepreneurs who have built a $20 million business and catch them prior to having a liquidity event, catch them prior to selling it. One of my clients, specifically what we're doing is we're talking to business brokers, we're talking to various people who are involved with sales of business. And he just closed a deal with an existing client where he added 20 million assets under management in one day. Well, most advisors are happy to do that in a year or two. Well, this was one check. It's frankly much easier to do that, is to chase down big opportunities than it is to look for, a whole bunch of minnows and hope they add up to something.
Oh my gosh, if that was ever more of a truth, I can't believe it. Yes, years ago, I had a business. It was called Background Music Services of Tidewater, and it was basically my company put in music systems and sound systems and intercoms and phones in businesses. And so it was a continuity business, which was great. And it was 5 years and then it renewed itself. So it was a very good business. However, I soon realized that dealing with the tiny mom and pops, the little dentist on the corner of the shopping center, this was arduous. I learned very quickly, let me go to chains like a grocery store chain, a drugstore chain. Let me go work with shopping center developments. And it took me a little bit longer, to get in the loop and to get to see them, but I'm persistent. If nothing else in life, I am persistent. And then I could make huge deals with, 50 stores at the same time versus trying to deal with the little, the dentist whose wife was, complaining that, he was spending money on, intercoms or something.
Oh, yeah.
So I always tell people, it's like, don't be shy about going to big people. That really smart people are hungry and they notice and observe someone who knows things they don't know. I mean, look at just successful people. They're looking for ways to save time, save money, save energy. And if you have a solution for them and that you're straightforward and, that the energy feels right, they're going to want to deal with you. So go for the big guys. I mean, again, it's worth it.
Oh, absolutely. And they're much less, I think people think the opposite. They think that they're going to be more nitpicky and they're so much more educated. They're going to be more discerning. Well, no, a seven-figure earner like us is, I want to find somebody I feel comfortable with who knows things that I want to do. If I have a video project, I'm not going to nitpick what camera they're using. I'm going to be, let's get this done. Here's my criteria. Can you do it? Fine. And they're not nearly as discerning about expense, about fees, about everything else, because they appreciate somebody who knows what they're doing, appreciates. And I mean, I very rarely beat somebody up on price if I think they're competent. Somebody who I'm reluctant to deal with at all, but they're just the only one I've come across. They're the ones I beat them up on price. The ones who are competent, who present themselves as on top of what they're doing. Okay, your price is your price. That's fine. I don't want to beat you up enough that you're going to feel like you have to compromise on quality, because I know what it is I want, and if you can do it, you can do it, right? I mean, that's really what happens. And again, these little bread and butter clients, great. And sure, there's an awful lot of people with a great deal of need, but there's a huge universe of whales, and there's a huge universe of people who are going to multiply again the assets under management. There's a huge number of people who can give you. And again, I use the example of Fisher. Well, all over their ads, everything branded on their ads is, if you have 500,000 or more, here's the things that you should be aware of. Well, what does that mean? If you don't have 500,000 or more, don't darken our door. And so they're very clear on who it is they're looking for, and very clear on what the criteria is, and are bringing in, they're feeding thousands of advisors through direct response marketing.
So you and I've discussed this in detail over dinner many nights about really what we're really talking about, Stephen, is low self-esteem on the part of the people who are financial planners. They believe in lack. They're running from fear. They have imaginary conversations in their head and imaginary situations. They assume things they shouldn't assume. But really, the bottom line is they have been captured by mainstream media not just on the news. I mean, it's in movies, it's in television shows, where again, people make fun of financial planners,
Yeah.
they make fun of salespeople, they're very negative towards them. And so somehow or another, financial planners always feel like, I mean, they feel like they're less than.
Oh yeah.
You've got to have just the opposite view. You've got to feel like you're hot. You got to feel like you're the guy or the woman who can absolutely break through a lot of the clutter. You can see opportunities. You can bring, new perspectives to the deal. Both of us know, like when a person goes on stage, you can really tell in the first 30 seconds, does this person believe in what they're saying?
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of visual, body language, there's tonality. There's also, as Napoleon Hill talked about in his book, that brains were like radio stations,
Mm-hmm.
and that the subconscious mind is always communicating. So people who don't believe in themselves, no matter what bravo you're putting on in the world, if you don't believe in yourself and you haven't convinced yourself that you're good enough, it's going to show up.
Yeah.
And so that's the basis for, I don't care what you do in life. I mean, think of your martial arts schools. Everybody has to start off as, pathetic and, terrified. I'm going to get my butt kicked here. Or are you going to hit my face? It's all those fears.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's this process of gaining confidence, and then techniques and skills, and you build and you build and you build. And that's what all of us who want to thrive in the future. I am now not, I mean, you can't not see the news. I mean, if you just go to a bank, they're playing For the Love of God, CNN, and they're playing stuff that's like, really, this is like killing you, but you're playing it in your lobby. But if anything happens, I know I don't even have to know the news, because you just flip through LinkedIn or Facebook or something, and there's the information.
Mm-hmm.
But my always question is, bad things have happened. Where is the leverage for me? What is it I can do to leverage this bad situation into a good situation? Where is my opening? And, everybody's afraid of change, but change is the most constant thing there is. And I do want to remind everybody that we're going through a real destruction of reality, sadly.
Yeah.
However, all new births have to have destruction. All new things have to have destruction. So we need to tear down whatever the hell it is you're doing and thinking and feeling that's literally holding you back. And I want to tell you the core of this. Most people think all power is external. And there is external power. I consider the IRS very high external power.
The FBI, yeah.
The FBI, the IRS, that's external. But however, the average people are fighting dragons and stuff that it's their own mindset of, they think, oh, I should call this person, but oh, they're too rich, they won't have any time for me. Just give it a shot. The worst thing that can happen is they say no, and no is the beginning of every sale.
Oh, absolutely.
No means absolutely nothing to me, as you well know. No,
Oh yeah.
no doesn't mean anything to me,
Yeah.
other than now I have knowledge
Mm-hmm.
of where and what I need to do to help this person, this client, this customer, whatever it is, because I know your weakness.
Yeah.
I know your biases. I know your fears. And then I can work on that instead of just giving up.
Yeah. Having essentially memorized everything that Zig Ziglar and Tom Hopkins said, back in the 80s. I always like Tom Hopkins' quote, "No is just a request for more information."
And it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
My father said no to me for everything I asked, which meant nothing to me. Like, okay, well, he used to call me the Philadelphia lawyer. I could find a reason why I could do this.
Yeah, that's my 14-year-old. He's very good at it. You mentioned something here that just really resonated with me. I have two different clients, one of which is Canadian and in the Toronto area, And he has a number of circles of friends, associates, groups that he's involved with very rich people, very influential people, and people who respect him a lot. And he just never would ask them or tell them about what business he was in, or take the next step to pursue a relationship with them, or to pursue the networks. And then I have another one who's in similar circles that you are, where they're speaking to the various conservative groups and have a podcast and one thing or another. And it's like they were afraid to mention their business and to address their business in their circles. And I always think that it's a combination of just not enough sincere interest in the other person, because if the value that you're going to bring to the table is a dramatic impact on their life, why do you want to deprive them of the opportunity to learn how to accomplish the things that only you know how to do for them? And combine that with, as you said, the imposter syndrome, or maybe it's a lack of self-esteem. I don't know what it is. I think oftentimes they think, well, my role here is going to be blemished if I bring business into it. Well, no, I mean, what your role is to help their life be improved, to help their wealth grow, to help them accomplish their financial goals. Won't their life be improved if you help them achieve the goals that they're attempting to achieve? And it's just amazing how often that comes up. Well, I'm involved with this, and well, what are you doing to benefit them through your knowledge base? Well, nothing. Why? Because I didn't want to really talk business with them.
Well, let's see. If you're if you're a baker and you're just making bread every day, I understand that. But I used to use a phrase that I still use occasionally, and that is when I would meet people, and I'm pretty assertive. Nobody ever thinks I'm a shy person. Actually, I am incredibly shy socially, but I feel very strong in business, so that's where I live my life. But here's the phrase I use: would you be interested if I could help you make more money? Mm-hmm. And if, and that phrase alone, and you can pretty it up, but would you be interested, to get together with me if I could help you make more money? And you make that like, if I could help you increase your portfolio, or if I could help you have more secure investment, but you can pretty it all up. Sure. But that's the bottom line. When I use that phrase, and I wrote it down earlier today when we were talking, there's no one who said no to me about that.
Oh, sure.
No one.
Sure.
And because I went in there with, okay, this, let me ask you some questions so I can take your needs and match with what I have. And let's see if that's a match. And if I'm not a match, I'll be the first person to say so, because I have integrity. Again, I'm in for, as you know, we're in for the long haul.
Oh,
We're just not blowing in and, grabbing, what do they call it? The money grab.
Sure.
We're not money grabbers.
No, it's not a short-term hit that leaves a bad taste in their mouth.
Right. No, because, I'm here for the long haul. And I always say, look, Google me. I mean, there's a lot of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And none of it's where people have sued me, or, I've taken advantage, or I've been connected with questionable people. I keep myself very clean in my reputation, because truthfully, I have high integrity and I want to help people, because I believe in this thing called karma.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And if I cheat people, people are going to cheat me. What you sow, you reap. So if people would take this position of, again, I'm an educator, I'm of service to you, and I think it's insane that people are afraid to tell other people, that they're in business. I mean, how would restaurants survive if, there wasn't a sign out at the door saying, we serve food?
Right. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I was using the example with both of these. And you and I have talked about this before. During my years here in Colorado working and developing my own businesses, I ended up with a relationship with the top 3 biggest employers in the state. At the time, 2 of them were U.S. West and Coors Brewery. U.S. West is now CenturyLink, and no longer based in Colorado, but they had 45,000 employees at the time. I had direct ties with the HR and the various C-suite people, and basically ended up in that company being able to do anything I wanted to market through their employee base and their executives. Same thing with Coors and same thing with several others. I ended up with C-suite executives for the Denver Broncos and the Denver Nuggets, able to do anything I wanted through those organizations. The executive director for Paul Mitchell Products, executive director for McDonald's in this region, ended up with relationships with them and were able to do anything I wanted, as well as a number of pro players and different things. But once you really target, you find out who somebody is, and that's I think part of it. Or Chet Holmes' old thing, may he rest in peace, was the Dream 100 list, right? Is find your Dream 100, who would be the best people that you'd love to work with, and target them. But that's what I did for years, and to a great extent they would come in as clients, and then I would figure out who they were, and then figure out what a win-win was. Another one was I had all of the C-suite executives of $780 million electronics chain that, again, let us do basically anything we wanted once they figured out how it was going to be a win-win for them. And there's so many opportunities. The main thing, I think, people are wired to see problems. They're not wired to see opportunities. I was in Washington, D.C. with a client, and they were complaining about where they were at, and they were on K Street in Washington, D.C., the area, which is right outside of Chinatown. I said, well, let's just go walk around the block. You think there's opportunities missing? So I pull out Zillow. I said, those condos right there, one bedroom selling for 1.2 million. I think there's some money around here, don't you think? Let's look at the cars going by: Porsche 911, Mercedes, Maybach, Rolls. I think there's some money here. Let's go stand in line at Starbucks. And I literally went to a line of 20 people and said, prospect, 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 maybe not prospect, prospect, but they just had blinders on. They couldn't see opportunity all around them, when it was just evident that it was, everywhere you looked, there was opportunity.
Well, see, one of the things that's really great about you is you show up and you're seen, and you show up at a lot of different type of venues.
Mhm.
They're not just entrepreneur venues, they're business venues. And I really believe you have to be seen in the world. You cannot just hide in your office.
No.
And, you really can't wait for the world to find you, because the world's busy and there's TikTok and all other kinds of crap out there that's very
Right.
distracting. But, and by the way, just don't play the game that everybody else is playing. I mean, all these people like TikTok. I mean, you're not going to get on and wiggle in front of the camera.
No.
Wiggle just so somebody will look at you for 5 seconds. That is not the appropriate place for you to be. LinkedIn, and there's other places that is more appropriate. I do want to tell you, Ben Glass, who's a lawyer.
Oh yeah. No, I'm
Right, Ben was in one of my coaching programs one day, and I remember this very clearly. We were talking about how you introduce yourself. We were actually talking about the 33-second elevator speech.
Right.
And folks, this was great advice. He said, look, I'm a lawyer, but if I meet someone and tell them I'm a lawyer, they're all going, who cares?
Oh yeah.
He said, but if I say to them, well, I'm a coach for my 13 kids, and he said, if I do this personal intro first, he said, I become more human and more approachable, and then I tell them I'm a lawyer. He said, because if you tell them you're a lawyer first, they immediately dislike you and distrust you.
Yeah.
And he said, so me bragging about me coaching, for all these young kids that I voluntarily coach for, and he's even part of some organization now. So I recommend that all of you think about, like, if you're a motorcycle enthusiast, or, whatever it is, that you introduce yourself. Well, first and foremost, I love motorcycles, but I also, for a living, to pay for this big thing, I am
Right.
this.
Yeah.
So You know,
And don't say you sell life insurance, because nobody wants to hear that.
my joke when I used to travel all the time, 100 cities a year, and I'd sit next to people, and when people would, try to have a conversation and you've talked all day and you don't want to talk, I'd always say, they say, what do you do? And I'd say life insurance. And they just shut up.
Shut up.
Nobody ever said another word to me. The only better thing was the IRS, but I never looked like an IRS person.
No. Hey, Lee, we were going to do about 45 minutes here, and we're, I think, already 8 or 10 minutes over our time limit. We could, as we've done many times, talk for 3 or 4 hours without taking a beat. But I want to be respectful of your time, and so we probably should wrap it up. You have a great, several great contributions in my new book, and the book is mostly about brass tacks, hardcore focused, marketing. It's about how to market on LinkedIn, how to market on Facebook, how to do direct mail, how to do websites and one thing or another. But your contributions are all about mindset, and my early contributions in my own book, the early part of the book is all about how to stand out, be different, and think differently about the world. And I think we've hit both ends of those in a fairly good way today. It's been extremely valuable.
Yes, and what I contribute to the book is that abundance is a mindset. If you really look around you, the most unexpected people can be completely wealthy and successful, and that you can't judge a book by its cover, and that all of us really are creating our reality every day, really by our thoughts and our projections, but really more important of what actions we're taking. And I think a lot of people just right now, their mindset has been so polluted by the overwhelming, overarching negativity of the world. There's almost this feeling that I'm discerning of what's the point. But there is a point, because when we pull out of this mess that we're in, they're going to be people who have risen to the top. And they've done it by consistency, by following certain principles, by doing things other people really will not do. But the mindset is you got to wake up every morning excited to be of service to people. And that when you have that energy, that will feel very clean to people. But don't just wait for the phone to ring. Do something. And I before we go today, I just want you to know, as you mentioned, I was on television. The reason I got on television is I was so poor when I first started my business. I had no money for advertising, but I did figure out that I was very good on television, very good on the radio. I wasn't afraid of any of that. And so I offered my advice and services to radio stations, TV stations, newspaper, magazines. And every month in my hometown, I would send out a letter to these people of like, if you're looking for productivity or you're looking for stress or anything. I got so much PR that I actually got picked up by someone who actually paid me for it. But for all of you out there, remember, there's a lot of ways you can promote yourself. People love to do business with people they saw on TV or they heard or they read in the newspaper, and it's free.
Yeah,
it's free.
If I remember correctly, weren't you interviewed on like 500 different radio stations on Blitz?
Yes, I was. I had advertised in a thing called it was like, I can't even think of the name of it. It was how to get on radio.
TV interview report or something like
that. Yes, I advertised on that. I did over 500 in my career. I've probably done around 1,700 interviews, and some of those have actually been cha-ching, where something happened that really put me in front of a lot of people. I gained a lot of new clients, and there are clients everywhere. If you just decide, I'm going to scan the landscape of my reality, and I'm specifically looking for, and know what your avatar is you're looking for. Like, I know that I really don't want to work with people who are working at IBM, in the grunt work thing. They're never going to buy me. They can't afford me. They're not going to listen to me.
Yeah.
But entrepreneurs, business owners, those are the people I resonate with, I'm aligned with. We see reality in the same way. I can be of great service. So you just have to really start to decide, this is who I want to work with. And there's kind of magic that will happen when you have clarity like that.
You bet. You bet. Hey, well, we better call it a day. I really appreciate the time. I don't want to be disrespectful of your time here. But
It's been fun.
yeah, it's been a great time. And I'll remind everybody, you have a new book coming out. We have a few of your books on the shelf there, a few of which I mail out to our clients as
Yes, you do.
as free gifts on a regular basis. And my new book, Extraordinary Marketing for Financial Advisors, is soon to be available everywhere. It certainly will be available through our website, Advisor Wealth Mastery. Thank you so much for your time, Lee.
Thank you so much. And everybody, please get Stephen's book. I promise you, it will make you money. It will make you have confidence, and it will make you feel more rewarded for what you do in life, because you're going to have clear, concise directions that are proven and repeatable.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.